This is the franchisee panel. This is where the franchisee owner will go ahead and set things up for your location or locations, as well as for your employees. This is not where you do your daily day-to-day work. When you first log in, you have a list of all your locations. First thing you want to do is edit. Make sure all your information is correct as far as the address and phone. Do not touch the latitude, longitude. We'll take care of that for you. But you will want to add the URL for your Google Plus link as well as your Yelp link on this page. The Any Lab Test preference is going to be where you put your lab IDs for your HL7 interfaces as well as your live POS ID. The Enable Co-branding allows you to replace the lab logos on the test results that are printed and sent to your customers from Quest, LabCorp, Alere, and so forth to the Any Lab Test logo. If you're in a state that requires an STD or HIV pickup for in-person for the results, you would go ahead and check this area here. Note that after 10 days, whether they picked up the test or not, the results will appear in the lab portal for them to review. When the result does come in through the HL7 interface, that is an STD or HIV test, and this is set to yes, an alert will come up on the employee screen so that they know they have to print that test up and call the employee, or the customer. The time zone, make sure you have the proper time zone selected, as well as your operating hours to make sure that your application, your Droid and iPhone app, reflect the correct hours on there. Underneath Manage Account, we've got the Manage Franchisee Profile. This is your information here. Franchisee User is where you add and remove your employees. So if you want to add an employee, you would add their information here. And most importantly, their access level. If they're just an employee, you would select employee and they can only log into the employee section. If they're a manager, they can log into the franchisee side, as you see right here, to create more users, reset users' passwords, etc., but they cannot log you out. The franchisee location, this is where we just were when we first logged into the screen. The franchisee lab test and panel allows you to create your own custom lab tests and lab panels. You can select for which lab it's for, a test name and code, and if it's an individual test or a panel, clinical or toxicology, the description, and if you would like, you can put in a frequency of how often you want the customer to be alerted they should take that test. If it's an STD or HIV test, the cost of that test, and if you would like to add another as well as the lab name and component for that panel. Lab test and panel to exclude. This is if you want to add or remove tests in your list so that they don't clutter your list up. You're only using the ones that show the ones that you really utilize. If you're looking for something in particular, you can narrow it down by lab and or by test code and exclude them there. You can also change your display from 20 to 50 to 100. The test panel frequency is how often you will alert the customer that they should be reminded for a particular test. Maybe you think a particular vitamin D test should be done every 30 days. You can have them alert every 30 days. Maybe some other tests, or simply just once a year. The lab test and panel pricing is if you're integrating with live POS, you'll want to update the pricing for each of your tests right here to push out the correct pricing to live POS. In the Manage Employer side, this is where you have your companies that you have for tox screenings. You can add an employer, add that company, say Walmart, their email address, their address, a phone number, any notes, and then preferences. Do they want the results emailed or faxed, and where to, as well as the payment methods and frequency, and which drug test lab they want to use, whether it's US Diagnostics or Quest, and if they do send it into a lab are we choosing US Diagnostics? The employer user is if you want to create employees for that employer. What I mean by that is people in the HR department. Maybe it's a large company and they want to have a different login for security purposes for each location, or maybe there's 5 people in the HR department, each want to have their own login instead of just one login for the entire company. You can do that for them here, or they can do it themselves underneath the employer section. We'll show you in another video. The managed customer is an area where if you want to go ahead and look up a customer and maybe edit their information, the customer can always edit their own information, but if you want to edit it for them, you can do so right here. Manage order is a list of any scheduled orders that are in the list, any suspended orders, anything awaiting results, and again, anything processed. The manage order section is the same thing as the employee side of the house, and this is just here for your convenience. Manage exception is the same thing as the employee side, where if there's an exception because the name or date of birth do not match up from what was entered, it would appear here with the closest match for that customer. The employer toxicology report allows you to either filter by range if you would like, or just give a general look to see what tests were done in a particular range, either for review or for billing purposes. Messaging is your secure messaging up and down one level, so either to corporate or to employee, but from the franchisee level, not to the customer directly. And in all screens, you have the ability to change password, log out, and the help and feature request here is coming shortly.